Hello.
So I am Dr. Helen Sennholtz, the principal at ISHCA, and I took foreign language in high school, but it was Latin. And we only had, that I can remember, maybe Latin, French, and Spanish. But I grew up in central Illinois in a town that if you were a person of color, you had to leave that town by 6 o'clock at night.
Wow.
And we had a women's softball team that was very competitive. And when they would host tournaments, if you had a person of color on your team, you could not stay in the town overnight.
Wow.
So you had to stay in Peoria because it wasn't very far from Peoria.
Yeah.
And there was a sign outside of town that said, "Home of the Ku Klux Klan." And they were quite proud of that kind of a behavior. But I feel like the people were nice. I don't feel like, as a child, I felt racist, but I was never exposed to anybody other than Caucasian people. And then I went to college, and I went to Illinois State University. And at that time, they were trying to have more minorities be teachers. So I got a scholarship if I agreed to teach, and so did a lot of individuals from Chicago who came from lower income. So they tried to open that up, and so there was some exposure to them. My mom grew up in Kansas City, and so I think she was a little prejudiced because she worked in the rail station doing tickets, and I think she was just, because she's much older, was exposed to things that maybe weren't real good. And she was raised Mormon, so with that comes another whole part of, the way people are different.
Wow.
And her grandfather, I believe, was an American Indian.
Wow.
So there was a lot of turmoil over that in those days. So the next question is, why do I think it's important to be?
Yeah, bilingual. Would you like to be bilingual?
Oh, I wish I knew Spanish so much. I think people here would think that I could communicate better. I think that then I would know what they were saying about me that I don't know.
Exactly.
It goes both ways. I think it opens doors to you. But I think I could learn the vocabulary of the language. I don't know. It seems that they talk so fast that the speed of the language would be my handicap. My son-in-law speaks Spanish, and my one daughter can pick up pieces of it, but not quite as much. I have another daughter who does sign language, and that was her language, and she doesn't use it professionally, but she's taught it to her children.
Wow.
So when they can't find the right word sometimes for their basic needs, the 1-year-old tells her what he needs through sign language.
Wow.
And so I think that that's just a simple example of if you need something, you ought to be able to do that. And I think it opens a lot of doors to you. And I think that language is something that kind of you own. So if your language is understood and you feel like you can communicate, then you feel like the person respects you and sees you as a whole person.
Yeah.
It's really hard. The Parent Patrol does so many nice things to me, but I can't talk to them.
Yeah.
But so they always are bringing me food, and because they know I like Mexican food. But I have some friends to this day that are my age who think I'm a little weird because I work here, and they make statements like, "Well, we waited to eat at the Mexican restaurant until you got in town because we know you like that food." And I'm going, what does that have to do with the price of potatoes?
Exactly.
So they have these opinions.
That's
but,
so funny.
I think that, I'm French. I'd love to be able to speak French. I think it's an attractive language.
Wow.
So I think if I could go back, it would just be knowing a lot of languages. And I sat next to an interpreter who worked for the Navy.
Okay.
And she said, you've mastered the language when you start to dream in that language.
That's what people say. Yeah.
And so if you dream in Spanish, you haven't mastered English.
There you go.
And so if I always dream in English.
Yeah.
And I think I'm a long way from being able to dream in Spanish.
Oh. That's
For me, it's a
true.
big hurdle. And I regret it, but I don't know that I was ever exposed to the opportunity.
And like what advice do you give to maybe like teenagers who are debating whether they should learn another language or not? Like,
Oh, I think they always should. And my grandkids, I have a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old, and they
mm-hmm,
both are learning Spanish
mm-hmm,
in school. And so they were playing hide and seek this summer at the motel
mm-hmm,
we were at, and they were
mm-hmm,
counting like you do. And
mm-hmm.
one of them said, I think it was the 4-year-old, says, "Okay, wait, stop. Let's start counting in Spanish." And so they started counting in Spanish, and they
Uh-huh.
did that on their own. So, I
Uh,
mean, they kind of know that. And
mm-hmm,
I think just encouraging them to be able to do that and to
mm-hmm.
have that opportunity is good.
Great.
My
All
one daughter
right.
said when she learned Spanish in high
Mm-hmm,
school, we grew up in an area where there were a lot of Polish, a lot of Italian, a lot of Spanish, and they
mm-hmm,
spoke their language in their homes.
mm.
When she would go over, she says, "I never let them know when I started to learn Spanish because then I wanted to know when they were talking about me."
Oh, see, that's perfect. That's a great reason to learn Spanish.
I don't know. It's not very trusting, is it?
Exactly. No, but it is true. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So, and they thought it was strange that we didn't know another language because
Mm-hmm.
their family spoke Italian or Polish.
Yeah. Yeah, because right now I'm reading like statistics, and supposedly the European Union, over 53% of the population speaks at least two languages.
Yes.
But in America, 18% speak
Yeah.
two languages.
Well,
So,
there was a person that I don't know the school, and it was several years ago, probably 25 years ago. She grew up in LA
mm-hmm.
and she came to Chicago and she started a school. And
Ah.
everybody had to know 3 languages to graduate.
Whoa. Mm-hmm.
They were English, Spanish, and the language of technology.
Oh, there you go.
So she made that one, and she
That's
said,
really cool.
so everybody pretty much had to learn 2 languages.
Mhm.
But she thought the idea of knowing technology language was
Oh,
important.
yeah, that is very important.
So
Wow.
that was a different twist I hadn't thought of.
Yeah, see, I'm gonna use that now. Yeah.
And she said that was in the day when they said you can't speak Spanish to your children.
Mhm.
And the father said, "I will speak English with you, but when we have a family discussion that's serious, we must speak in Spanish because that's the language we all know the best and we don't want to misunderstand one another."
Mhm. Wow,
So
very
I thought
great.
that was validating what he
Mhm.
had to. I think
yeah.
it's hard for parents who come in here and can't speak our language.
Yeah, that's also the
And I
other
think they
side
feel
as well.
intimidated and they shouldn't.
Mhm.
They're still the child's parent.
Exactly. Yeah, I didn't
So-
think about that. The other side as well. The other monolinguals who don't speak English,
Yeah.
right? How do they feel? What do they think? How would their life be different if they
Right.
did speak English, right? So,
Well, in Chicago, there are a few stations that, are Spanish stations,
Mhm.
but think of the Chinese that are here. There's maybe only one station for
Yeah.
them, and all their news then
Mhm.
is one direction. It's
Mhm.
whatever that station wants to put out.
Exactly.
And I think when you get into times of war, then people control what you hear, and then you lose your ability to think clearly
Definitely.
about a situation.
Yeah. That was the strangest thing for me in California because the majority is Asian. So they had about 14 different Asian channels: Japanese, Chinese, Korean.
Especially in the Stanford, Silicon Valley
Exactly.
area.
I
Yeah.
could not believe it. There were more Asian channels than Spanish channels. That
Yeah.
was the first time I encountered that in the United States.
Yeah.
But it was interesting. Sometimes I would just discover new music, discover
Uh-huh.
like just especially music. I would watch the music videos
Right.
and be like, oh, that's interesting. So
Right. Did you watch
Yeah.
the Grammys?
I did not.
This is the first time that I saw them give awards to artists
Hmm.
with Puerto Rican Hispanic music influence.
Hmm.
And
Mm.
they even recognized them at the end of the people, every year, people who
Uh-huh.
die, they
Oh, okay.
recognize them as well. And I've
Wow.
never noticed that Spanish piece to that. It may have been
Yeah.
there because I
Yeah.
don't watch it all the time, but I
Mhm.
thought that was a move forward.
Yeah, I did see that some people performed in Spanish, which is
Yeah.
new. It's
Yeah.
not very common for that to happen.
Right.
Wow.
So it's much
Yeah,
different.
things are changing.
It is.
Yeah.
Little by little, huh?
Little by little.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
All right, Dr. Sennholtz. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Okay.
And I learned a lot about being monolingual and wanting to be bilingual and a lot of historical aspects as well, which
Yeah.
I wasn't aware of. So thank you.
Yep, you're
Thank
welcome.
you.